Welcome to the latest episode of Quaestio and Responsum. I'm Dyer, and tonight we'll be interviewing two of ancient Rome's greatest historians, Velleius and Tacitus, discovering their contradicting views of the famous first emperor of Rome, Augustus Caesar. As the first emperor of Rome, Augustus was responsible for many political and social changes. However, evidence and conflicting opinions about the emperor leaves us with one question: was he a hero or was he a villain? First, let's go to you, Velleius. Give us a little introduction of yourself.
I was a Roman soldier, political figure, and historian, with my works detailing the reigns of Augustus and Tiberius. I read a compendium of Roman history from the origins to 29 AD.
And you, Tacitus?
I was a Roman orator and public official, considered one of the greatest prose stylists who wrote in the Latin language. Among my many works is the Annals, dealing with the empire in the period from 14 to 68 AD. I did so without either bitterness or partiality from any motives to which I am far removed.
Let's begin with Augustus's rise to power. Originally serving under his great-uncle Julius Caesar, he was later adopted as Caesar's son. After the assassination of Julius Caesar, he returned to Rome, winning over Caesar's supporters to eventually be granted the status of senator. By 40 BC, Augustus and Mark Antony reached a new agreement, the Treaty of Brundisium. The Roman Empire was divided, Antony taking the east, Augustus the west. Augustus charged that Antony had misused his sister Octavia when Antony divorced her in favour of Cleopatra in 33 BC, who had been married to Antony as part of the treaty. Augustus illegally forced the surrender of Antony's will and had it read in the Senate. The will gave away Roman territories to Antony's sons. Augustus branded Antony a renegade, so the Senate revoked Antony's consulship and declared war on Cleopatra. Augustus returned as victor, with Cleopatra and Mark Antony both committing suicide. Velleius, what is your view on Augustus' rule over Rome as sole consul?
All of Rome was grateful for Augustus's accomplishments. He made so many beneficial and positive changes to the empire. As for Augustus' return to Rome, men of all classes, ages, and ranks met the enthusiasm of his reception. The civil wars were ended after 20 years, foreign wars suppressed, peace restored, validity was restored to the laws, authority to the courts, and dignity to the Senate. The power of the magistrates was reduced to its former limits. The old traditional form of the republic was restored, old laws were usefully amended, and new laws passed for the general good. The dictatorship which the people persistently offered him, he stubbornly refused.
And do you have a different view, Tacitus?
Yes, Augustus did restore peace, but he was not the acclaimed politician Velleius makes him out to be. He was two-faced and in it for himself. When after the destruction of Brutus and Cassius, there was no longer any army for the Commonwealth. When Pompeius was crushed in Sicily, and when, with Lepidus pushed aside and Antonius slain, even the Julian faction had only Caesar left to lead it. Then, dropping the title of triumvir and giving out that he was a consul, and was satisfied with the tribune's authority for the protection of the people. Augustus seduced the army with bonuses, and his cheap food policy was successful bait for civilians. Yes, he attracted everybody's goodwill by the enjoyable gift of peace, but he gradually pushed ahead and absorbed the functions of the Senate, the officials, and even the law. Thus the state had been revolutionized, and there was not a vestige left in the old sound morality.
Whilst it is true that Augustus was wholly opposed for the bloody spirits had fallen in battle, your statement, Velleius, that Augustus' stubborn refused dictatorship was only but a political play. As pointed out by Tacitus, Augustus was carefully playing the political game, learning from his adopted father's mistake as to not convey power. Augustus was cautious to categorize all of his political stratagems as being for the good of the Republic of Rome, seemingly satisfied with the tribune's authority for the protection of the people, as described by Tacitus. By 19 BC, he was given Imperium Macius, supreme power, over every province in the Roman Empire, and from that time on, Augustus Caesar ruled supremely, the first emperor of Rome. As for his political success, your opinion, Tacitus, is true to an extent, however the negative connotations appear unjustified. While it is true that Augustus' political monopoly and domination of armies enabled him to introduce numerous policies, the benefit brought to the empire as a result gave him the authority needed to maintain the principate, as explained by Velleius. Your claim that Augustus absorbed the functions of the Senate, officials, and even the law is also arguable, considering the Senate provided the base for his success through the numerous titles and positions bestowed upon him. It appears rather that Augustus' superior administrative skills provided the basis of his power, the Senate allowing him to dominate because of the benefit his control was bringing. Tacitus, you also describe Augustus's introduction of cheap food as bait for citizens. While it is true that Augustus became responsible for an expanded distribution of the grain dole, he likewise introduced a means test, so grain was only given to those who needed it. I also have here that ancient historian Suetonius labelled it generosity to all classes. While the grain dole was indeed successful in satisfying the lower class plebeians, it was not the only factor ensuring political support for Augustus. The plebeians were also kept content with Augustus' provision of games and spectacles, the regeste mentioning 8 gladiatorial games, 26 beast hunts, and a naval battle, the introduction of a police force and fire brigade, and an extensive public works program, which included the construction of a new aqueduct and forum. Tacitus, your statement fails to recognise Augustus' benefits to the equites. Mentioning only one of Augustus' policies, you fail to consider all the benefits Augustus brought to the citizens of Rome. You both mention the number of moral and political reforms introduced by Augustus to improve Roman society and formulate a new Roman government and lifestyle. They indeed revolutionised the empire. However, your statement, Tacitus, that there was not a vestige left of the old sound morality is a stark contrast to Velleius's comment that the old traditional form of the republic was restored, old laws were usefully amended, and new laws passed for the general good. Augustus first commissioned the construction of monuments and revived the priesthoods, all to promote the traditional Roman religion. He also hoped that these steps would restore moral standards in Rome, enacting social reforms as a way to improve this morality. He politically and financially rewarded families with 3 or more children, increasing the Roman Empire's population. Augustus also amended divorce laws to make them stricter. In addition, adultery became a civil crime instead of a personal crime, with Augustus' own daughter Julia being banished for adultery after this new legislation. His political, social, and moral reforms helped to bring stability and security, and perhaps most importantly, prosperity to the Roman world, which had been previously rocked by internal turmoil and chaos. One thing you both agree on is the enjoyable gift of peace Augustus restored to Rome. As pointed out by Velleius, civil wars were ended after 20 years, foreign wars suppressed, and peace was restored. The peace Augustus brought to Rome lasted centuries, and in my opinion is the solidifying aspect of this debate. Yes, he did bait citizen Tacitus, and eventually rose to sole power, but name a politician who hasn't. I think it is evident that the good pointed out by Velleius outweighs the bad, and it is fair to consider Augustus the hero who brought change and peace to Rome. That concludes tonight's episode of Quaestio Responsum. Please join us next week as we investigate Augustus' heir, Tiberius. A big thank you to Velleius and Tacitus for joining me tonight and offering up their very interesting opinions on the first emperor of Rome. My name is Dyer. Thank you and good night.